Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host, Zacks Small Cap Research, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Genflow Biosciences. Their session will be moderated by Brad Sorensen, Senior Equity Research Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research. Please note you can submit questions to the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Eric Lehr, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Genflow Biosciences PLC, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol GENFF, and on the LSE under the symbol GENF. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my passion about what I consider the most exciting company, biotech company on the market. Let's start. The session today will be a short presentation, as short as possible, 5 minutes, just an overall presentation of the company, and it should be followed by a discussion with Brad that will be more easy for the audience. As Brad mentioned, we are listed on London Stock Exchange, and we're trading in the US on OTCQB, so I have to have this forward-looking statement. You're used to it. Let's move to the real presentation of the company. We are at Genflow, a longevity company. We consider longevity both as a problem and an opportunity. It's a problem in spite of the fact that in the last 100 years we gain a second life, moving from 40 years life expectancy to 80 years. We are still losing half of this second life fighting against cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease. When you combine this with an aging population, a higher cost of therapy, you can see this is a problem and an unsustainable situation for the society. It's a problem, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity because we start to understand the biological drivers of aging. And as we identify those biological drivers of aging, we can use those to identify new targets to better treat age-related disease. It's also an opportunity because when health agencies will recognize aging as a risk factor, and this will happen, and when those agencies will regulate the development of anti-aging drugs, it's very likely that we'll see a big move from big pharma and a major wave of acquisition of the few longevity companies. So, okay, here, yes. Sorry, I'm mixed up in my slide. Okay. What we do is we use the understanding of the biology of aging to develop new gene therapy based on those genes that regulate aging. Sirtuin-6 is one of those age-related regulator genes that has been identified in multiple species, both in small animal like in human. In addition, what we use is a mutation of the Sirtuin-6 that we found only in centenarian. So in some kind of a super Sirtuin-6 that allows people to go to past 100 years age. Genflow is also supported by a fantastic team, both at the management level, at the board level, at the scientific advisory board with longevity experts such as Vera Gorbunova of University of Rochester or Eric Verdin at the Buck Institute. We're not a one-trick pony. We have a solid pipeline with 4 different programs. The program is mostly led by MASH, previously known as NASH, MASH is the fibrotic evolution of the fatty liver. We think we have a good shot at MASH. It's a difficult indication, but we still think based on our preclinical trial results, we still have a very good shot at MASH. Why? Because we act at every step of the disease. We have an activity on the fat deposition, we have an activity on the inflammation, on the fibrosis, on the liver function, and ultimately also on the risk of cancer. So a good shot. It's also interesting indication because it's a very large market opportunity with 36 million people affected with MASH in the world. Also, those 36 million people affected with MASH, it's a huge unmet need. MASH is becoming all over the world as the first cause for liver transplantation. But the market opportunity does not limit to purely the disease itself, MASH, because of our approach to take anti-aging drugs and applying them to this specific disease. We open up the door to very likely associated off-label rejuvenation benefit on other organs. We have the same market opportunity with sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the loss of muscle that you experience when you age. It's a very bad sign because it's increase your risk of cancer, of diabetes, of cardiovascular. Also, you lose the link with others or social link. So it's something important with no therapy. So also large market, unmet needs. In addition, we have the Werner syndrome. Werner syndrome is a rare progeria. It's a disease of accelerating aging. It's strategically very important for us because we want to establish as much as possible a pure anti-aging benefit. And this is the acid test. If you can delay or stop or even reverse aging in this population, that's a perfect test for all of us. Finally, the fourth program is a program we do with dogs. There's a very large appetite from the veterinary industry for life extension for dogs, for our dog companions. And therefore, we'll do a proof of concept. We're starting this very soon. And once this proof of concept is finished, that should trigger an out-licensing deal with our a partner in veterinary. I would like to thank you and move to the Q&A section and welcome Brad to the presentation.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, glad to be here. Very exciting stuff. Yeah, life is the only 100% fatal disease that we have. So you're addressing that. Let's talk a little bit about, everybody hears all these claims on TV, commercials on the internet that this will, take these pills, do this, it'll give you a longer life, it'll make your skin look better. My wife brings all these things to me, and you just kind of you start to get numb to all of it because it's like, yeah, this can't all be true. So can you just, in basic terms, we're not PhDs here, can you explain a little bit about the science, again, in basic terms, behind what you believe is the anti-aging treatment that you guys are developing?
Okay. Interesting question, because when I say we understand the biology of aging, we understand it's complex and it's multifactorial. So no one should expect to have the magic bullet that will fix aging. It's a little bit like cancer. You cannot say, for cancer, there will be one therapy and pop, it's finished. Same thing. It's very complex. It's at least even more complex than cancer. So we start to have the understanding. It seems that now there's a consensus to say that the root cause is our ability to repair DNA damage. And then when you repair DNA damage, you have epigenomic modifications, and the cells lose their programmation and lose their function. And then you have all those hallmark of aging. It could be the mitochondrial dysfunction, it could be the telomere, it could be the senescence. All that is in fact linked with DNA damage. We think in our company that genes play a major role in aging. We all have this feeling because we see people who have the same lifestyle, and we see in couples some age gracefully and some age it's terrible. It's become a tragedy. And it's mostly how your genome is able to deal with DNA damage. And if you're lucky enough to have, for example, this mutation of sirtuin-6, you may end up centenarian. The objective of the company is to share this mutation with everyone. So we all have the same benefit of those centenarian. That's mostly the basis of the approach with sirtuin-6.
Right. And then so go ahead.
Please.
Oh. So, and then using that science, we'll go into the treatments that you have right now that are under investigation. So, like you mentioned, I used to, I've covered companies and I used to call it NASH, but now the FDA changed it to MASH. So how does the science behind this translate into the science behind NASH and bring you closer to that goal of having a treatment for NASH, or MASH now, which is a very debilitating disease and needs treatment very desperately?
Okay. Yes, MASH is very interesting. As you know, neither the FDA, the MHRA, or the European Agency consider yet aging as a risk factor or a disease. So therefore, we have to develop drugs for age-related disease. Liver is particularly interesting because liver is one of those organs that we can rejuvenate. If I cut half of your liver, in 6 months, you have a regrown liver. And if you're a salamander, you can regrow a lot of things. We have limited ability, but liver, very interesting. Very interesting also because for a gene therapy, you don't need a lot of PK/PD study, bioavailability, let's say, to simplify a little bit, to be sure that your gene therapy will reach the liver. It's the first filter, and you will have a lot of your gene therapy there. I mentioned that we had a very good shot. I think we have a good shot. It's difficult. It's difficult. There's a lot of failures. There's one product that has been approved recently. It's a conditional approval. It's becoming a huge unmet need with first cause of liver transplantation. That gives us the possibility to have an accelerated pathway for development, which is very attractive because for the investors, let's say, the clinical development will be shorter and cheaper. We'll have to produce less studies because there's a huge demand from the... MASH is an evolutive disease. So it's difficult because it's like shooting to a moving target. So you have very good anti-inflammatory drugs, doesn't work. You have very good anti-steatosis drugs like the GLP-1, doesn't work. We think we have a good shot because we act at the beginning on the fat deposition. There's an anti-inflammatory effect. There's an anti-fibrotic effect that has been well identified after our discussion with the health authorities. We identify now a novel mechanism that we presented on a poster at the ARDD conference in Copenhagen last month. We have a positive effect on the hepatocyte function, so blocking the evolution to cirrhosis. And even we have an anti-cancer because unfortunately MASH end up evolving on hepatoma, cancer of the liver. So that's a very interesting indication for us.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you said, a very high need in the general public for sure. And yeah, I've dealt with other companies that have struggled finding cures or treatments for this condition. So let's just back up a little bit. And so for the testing, for the material that you need, do you outsource that? Do you have your own laboratory facilities. Explain a little bit about how that goes. That process is
Yes,
completed.
yes. We are a UK-based company because we are listed on London Stock Exchange. Fine. But we have a subsidiary. We have a subsidiary in the US, a subsidiary in Belgium, and most of the research is conducted from Belgium. It's conducted from Belgium because we get a lot of non-diluting grants. 70 to 80% of our R&D is supported by grants. So we are kind of a weird animal, I would say. We went to IPO very early. We don't depend, so it's all common shares. We don't have venture capital with preferred. We had a few VCs when we did the seeding, but they accepted to have common shares. Plain vanilla, no loan, nothing, small amount of money. So we have a small market cap, was still very attractive, and most 70 to 80% of the R&D, depending on the project, is supported by grants from the Wallonia region, mostly, and European. So that's an idiosyncrasy of the company that, in fact, we are at the same time in 3 different countries: UK, Belgium, and US. Belgium explained by the fact that we get a lot of non-diluting grants.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But you mentioned one word that I'm going to jump on and ask you the question, because it's a very rare thing to see both. You said animal. So it's a very rare thing to see the same company going after human treatments and treatments for dogs. So can you explain a little bit about how that came about and what the idea is behind that?
Okay. I'm a dog owner, and that's all my experience on the veterinary, but I will speak about that. You know that you have to do talks with 2 species. And when we first start our business plan, we plan 1 rodent and 1 higher mammals, and we thought about dogs. And that's very expensive, that's very long. But in the initial business plan, you always put the worst case scenario. So you sandbag a little bit. Common practice.
Yes.
And the idea was to recycle the dog study into a proof of concept, because contact we had with some vet pharma company, and they were saying that they are looking actively to a product that brings life extension for dogs, our dog companion. I thought naively that was the old lady who doesn't want to die before a dog to die before her. Not at all. It's a young couple. My generation, I took my dog under the pressure of my kids when they were 14, 15. Now they're in college and I still have the dog, no problem. Young couple are smarter than I am. They test their family unit with a dog. And after 2-3 years, they say, "Hey, we did a good job. We're still together. The dog is well educated. Let's get kids." Smart. Okay. The only problem is the dog is dying when the kids are 5 or 6 with this approach, and that's not what you want to. It's not a conversation you want to have with your kids. Anyway, so that's why, and that's a core customer. So huge market, and they said, "Bring us any kind of proof of concept. Let's have a deal." It's not our business. That, I don't know the distribution. We'll do the proof of concept, and that should trigger a licensing out agreement.
Okay, but with that, this might be a genius by, I'm not going to say mistake, but fortuitous circumstances, we'll say that. So the regulatory environment is obviously less onerous for dog treatments. Can this be through licensing or some other? Can that start to bring revenue into the company earlier and help offset the cost of the other trials? What's the kind of financial benefit of doing this?
That will be wishful thinking. First, you need to have the money on the bank. Yes, overall, that's the idea. To what extent depend on how strong is our proof of concept. It will take 6 months to conduct the study. There's 3 months of paperwork. We need to do an analysis to present. So we have some time. We have the cash anyway. We have the runway to do all of that. We're not under pressure through by the way, our grants financing and the fact that we are a listed company. So we have a long runway. But yes, we'll see what kind of deal we can have. It's a very now concentrated industry, the vet, so you don't have a lot of people to discuss with. They're bigger and bigger, so it's difficult when a small company and partnership with a big company, and especially when you don't know the space. So I will be more in favor of pure licensing out than a partnership. We'll see what will be the structure of the deal, upfront payment, milestones, how much royalties, too early to say. But it should help to bring some cash, again, non-diluting cash in the company, and allow us, when we'll be in clinical, we'll have a need of cash when we'll be in clinical with phase 1/2 in MASH, study at phase 1 in sarcopenia, and 1/2 in Werner. So that will be welcome cash.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of costs coming up for sure. So I'll just echo your statements that I'm probably older than the typical dog owner that really loves their dogs, but I know people that they would rather spend money on their dogs than themselves. So that's definitely a market. So let's talk about the financials. You've mentioned it a few times. Let's just get into it because investors need to know that. Yeah, you talked about the runway. How much runway do you think you have? When are the human trials going to start? And do you have money to fund those trials, at least for the NASH? Just kind of detail that out a little bit so people can understand where you stand on the financial front.
Yes. So for MASH, we are now on the IND enabling phase. That means we do the talks and the GMP production. We had applied for grant from Wallonia. It has been discussed. The money, it has been accepted. We're still waiting for the money to become on the bank. As soon as we have that, we can be let's say 18 months to starting the clinical trial in human. We have the possibility, in addition to the grant, every year to have to issue 20% of new shares, and there's a lot of appetite from investors. And every year we try to sell 20% of our shares, which give us a lot of comfort for the very long term. We don't need additional big funding. The flexibility in terms of, we have some flexibility in terms of cost. The big cost will come from clinical trials. We'll start with MASH. Sarcopenia will come later. Werner can come pretty fast. We still have to discuss with the agencies regarding Werner. So I don't want to tell too much about the timing of the clinical trial for Werner. I will tell the market once we have a first discussion with one of the agencies. Most likely we'll conduct the Werner syndrome trial in Italy, in northern Sardinia, where there's a cluster of patients.
Excellent. Yeah, that's always one of the biggest questions when biotech companies are getting started and starting to bring things to trials is, will they have the financial resources to get there? So between the Belgian thing, and then I just wanted you to touch on really quick the structure of the company, like how much overhead is there, how much, how lean a ship do you run, how much do you control costs through employees, those kind of things.
As the answer is very clear, as lean as possible. We finance mostly the company with grants. So that means grants only apply. You have a little bit of overhead with the grants, but it's mostly on programs. So we spend money on programs. We're lucky to have a very nice scientific advisory board with very competent people, very passionate, and we worked a lot with those people. So it's not. Sometimes the board is kind of validation, but you just talk with them twice a year or 3-4 times per year, and that's it. Not our case. We worked extremely closely, and we conduct studies with them. We've done a lot of work with Manlio, a lot of work with Vera Gorbunova, University of Rochester, New York. All the studies are supported by grants. Other than that, G&A as lean as possible. We work on a virtual model. We outsource a lot. We don't have a large team inside, and we use a company called TrueBridge that provide us if we need, for example, now we need a tox specialist. We have a tox specialist for the next 6 months, and then it's closed. It's as a consultant, and rather than having an in-house tox specialist, we had access through this company to a PK/PD specialist for the last 12 months. But that gives us a lot of flexibility, a lot of variable cost, so we don't have commitment. So if there's bad weather, if, I don't know, something really happened, the market crash, and no one is, the government cannot pay the grant, we have the ability to reduce the sales and go more slowly and be in cash preservation. If we gain more, we have also the opportunity to speed up and go faster with certain programs. And that's the beauty of having a large pipeline with four different products. It's safer in terms of risk, and it's also give us some possibility to sometimes delay one study, sometimes to go faster, depending on the financial climate.
Yeah, the diversity of pipeline combined with the variable costs is a huge plus in this environment. We're almost out of time, but I do want to get to a client, an investor question. Sorry. We have an investor asking, it's actually more a question about you and I guess your opinion. You, speaking of you, have a strong background in being at the top of NASDAQ listed companies. Do you see this company replicating that success, or is the focus being bought out by one of the pharma giants?
The honest answer is I don't know yet. To move to NASDAQ, the cost is roughly 3 million per year. You have your 3 million, not direct cost, because the NASDAQ management fee is not important, but you have the exposure to stocks, you have a higher D&O insurance, you have a lot of cost. Right now, does it make sense to spend 3 million? I just told you that the money goes to the R&D. If I put 3 million, that's you will say, man, you have to choose something. So the approach we took was, rather than going to NASDAQ directly, which is finally the objective, is to trade on OTCQB. It's not associated with high cost. It's a very a nice option, and it gives us the facility to if necessary, when we want to uplist to NASDAQ. NASDAQ likes to see people with some volume and some people who are disciplined. Have you done your 8K, your 10K, 10Q, and no problem with the SEC? That's what's important. Now, will it come first, pharma acquisition or NASDAQ? I don't know yet. What I know is for sure, when one agency will move toward, okay, we recognize aging is a disease, we regulate this, pharma all of a sudden will look at us, the 10, 15 companies that are doing longevity, and there will be a massive wave of acquisition, bigger than what you've seen in immuno-oncology, bigger than what you saw with mRNA. That will be huge. It may happen in a year, in 3 years, max. if we move very fast, if things we may before 3 years be on NASDAQ, maybe we'll wait 3 years. But I will never go to NASDAQ just, I've seen so many CEO of biotech who wants to go to NASDAQ just to say, I did it. It's kind of a personal accomplishment. Yes,
Ego
man, you
thing.
did it, but with the money of the investors. It costs 3 million for your ego. My ego doesn't, the value of my ego is not 3 million. I can wait.
Well, that's definitely good to hear. And, I think investors got a great story here. It's an exciting company that is being run very well, I'll say, after analyzing it. And if investors have questions, you can contact the company and their investor relations department. The information is available there. But for now, we're going to wrap up. And thank you, Eric. Appreciate it, everybody. And thank you all for joining us.